up one morning, you go about your normal routine of getting some coffee, brushing your teeth, getting out of your pajamas. Probably not necessarily in that order, but you still do those things. You sit down with your morning cup of coffee and you watch the news, expecting to see the weather, wanting to see what the temperature is outside. Instead of the weatherman, there are the news anchors, and they look worried. They're telling people not to panic, to stay indoors, and to avoid areas of dense population. They warn you that there is an outbreak of a disease in your area that causes violence, and there's evidence linking this particular virus, or bacteria, they're not quite sure what it is quite yet, to its victims, its recently perished victims, rising up and attacking those around them with little to no hesitation. The CDC is telling us that they are working on a cure. However, it will take time. In the meantime, all they can tell you is to prepare for the worst and to avoid contact with the infected and their body fluids. And also to aim for the head should you be in confrontation with them, because destroying the mass central nervous system will end their life functions. Now, the news anchors tell you this is the zombie apocalypse, people. It is entirely possible that this is the end. Do you know what you're going to do? Preparing for widespread outbreak of zombies or any other natural disaster such as an earthquake, pandemic, tornadoes, hurricanes, they can all be prepared for in similar ways. First and foremost, you should gather the necessary supplies for an emergency preparation kit. Another critical step to getting yourself into safety is having a plan of action to execute when things go very, very awry. In the CDC blog post titled Zombie Apocalypse 101, they mention that preparing for the case of the undead rising up to feast on the sweet flesh of the living is like preparing for any other natural disaster. They list a basic list of supplies that you should have in case of widespread catastrophe. The basic list includes water, at least 1 gallon per person per day, enough water for at least 3 days. You need non-perishable food items, canned goods, things that are packaged and vacuumed. You'll need medications, any prescription and non-prescription medications that you take. You'll need tools such as a utility knife, duct tape, and a battery-powered radio. Sanitation and hygiene tools such as household bleach, soap, and towels. You will need bedding and clothing, a change of clothing for every member of your family, as well as towels and blankets. And, of course, you'll need essential documents, such as a copy of your driver's license and a copy of birth certificates for you and your family. And, of course, first aid supplies. These are always important, even if there's not a catastrophe around. Well, in the case of zombies, there are a few extra game changers that you'll need to account for. First and foremost, you should wear a face mask and goggles. These will help you prevent coming in contact with the infected bodily fluids and any pathogens that may possibly be making the people rise up and try to kill people. This is also very good to have in case of any other pandemic or epidemic situation that may arise. A crowbar will also be necessary or useful. In case you happen to be on the run from zombies, it can be an effective blunt force trauma weapon that can be used to attack the zombies. Or, if you aren't interested in actually dealing with the zombies one-on-one, they can be useful for breaking in windows, prying open doors, and such things like that. And of course, either a shotgun or some other firearm on hand is one of your best ways to quickly and effectively take down the infected. Now, another crucial step is having a plan of action to be able to deal with whatever is happening. Now, the CDC outlines a few steps in making your emergency plan, which is very important because when disaster happens, you need to have an executable plan so that you don't panic and so that you can get you and your family to a place of safety. Firstly, you should identify possible disasters that can happen in your area, such as in Killeen, in central Texas, especially during this horrible drought season. we're at an increased risk of wildfires. So we'll need to prepare for that. Also, when the weather changes, which we all know it will eventually, we'll be at risk of floods, horrible thunderstorms, and possibly even tornadoes. Second, you and your family should pick a meeting place outside of your home. One should be right outside of your home, inside of your neighborhood for small emergencies, and another one outside of your neighborhood for when natural disasters or other big catastrophes happen. Third, you should identify your emergency contacts. You know, there are things that are commonplace that you, of course, should have. 911, the police, fire department. However, you should also have someone out of state that you can contact so that you can let the rest of your family know that you're okay in case you're ever separated. Lastly, you should plan your evacuation route to shelter or a place of safety. This should include multiple routes, depending on the disaster, and multiple places of shelter, also depending on what disaster is happening. Along with this basic plan for emergencies that happen most frequently, perhaps you should even plan for zombies. This, of course, involves a slight step in difference when actually making the plan, such as zombies most quickly affect areas that are densely populated with people, so you should try to avoid areas in the urban area and residential areas. Now, firstly, you should plan evacuations routes that take this into account and use less utilized roads that stay out of the urban and residential areas. And then lastly, you need to find a place outside of your city or hometown, someplace with either a very low or zero population, perhaps somewhere out in the wilderness, or maybe a cabin or a long stretch of beach that has no people and reduces your risk of running into the infected and thus getting yourself infected and either having yourself eaten or dying and becoming one of the zombies rising up to eat your family. Now, of course, it's always important to monitor the situation once you're outside of that urban area, just in case it dies down, or so that you can know whether there's a safe place of shelter that you can go. Now, in the event of major disasters, be it tornadoes, hurricanes, earthquakes, zombies even, it's incredibly important to be prepared with both supplies and a plan of action that you can execute so that it doesn't lead you to panicking, worrying about whether you'll have fresh water, fresh food, clothing. Instead, you can worry about getting yourself to safety. Now, it's very important to keep a level head, and being prepared will help you do this. Remember that panic will not help you escape, and it will not help your aim. Thank you very much.